Hi everyone. This video is going to be a walkthrough for the new CurvaSURE Shaper Generator version 3.0. Now, I originally did one of these walkthrough videos when I first released the program. However, version 3 has so many new exciting features and functions that I thought it warranted a new walkthrough. Some of you may be watching this because you've bought the program and are curious about how it works, or maybe you're considering buying the program and want to see what it's all about. Either way, I hope this video will be enlightening and show you all the exciting things that CurvaSURE version 3.0 has to offer. Let's get started. When you open the program, you'll see two areas, the control panel on the left and the preview area on the right. The left contains all adjustable functions, while the right displays the shape. On first launch, you'll likely see a notification informing you that presets have been downloaded or updated. One of CurvaSURE's advantages is that none of the presets are stored locally. Everything is pulled from an online repository and stored as a local cache on your machine. This means that new shapes or updated measurements can be added remotely, and your program will automatically update the next time you open it. Let's start with the preset menu. Clicking the box reveals several options. The default templates at the top are empty and used when creating your own shapes, which we'll discuss later. The second section of categories contains a wide variety of well-known shapes. Custom presets are not stored within the program and must be exported separately. So after finalizing your shape, use Save Custom Preset to save your preset locally and Open Custom Preset to reopen them later. At the bottom of the preset menu, Download and Update Presets forces an update check. The program automatically checks on startup, so you'll rarely need to use this manually. If the online repository becomes inaccessible for some reason, Load Backup Database lets you load a local file containing all presets. Contact me if you ever need a backup. Clear Preset Cache removes all downloaded presets on your computer. After clearing, you can click Download and Update Presets to restore everything. Let's talk through the functioning of the program after choosing a preset. As I'm a bassoonist myself, let's choose Rigger 1A as it's a common shape that many players are familiar with. Selecting that preset populates the preview area. At the top, the legend explains the plot lines. The red center line is the tip point, the yellow line is the narrowest point, which is automatically calculated, and the green line marks the butt at the end of the reed. The gray circles are the alignment posts, and the black open circle is the bolt hole, possibly including a dotted hexagon around the outside. Returning to the control panel, you'll see a number of adjustable parameters. Total cane length defaults to 120 mm for bassoon, but you can change it, for example, to 116. As you adjust the number, the preview updates instantly. If you shorten the total cane length, the program does not compress the shape, but instead it truncates the end. Extending the length works similarly. It simply adds a tangential extension beyond the last available measurement point. It's worth noting that some of the presets contain points beyond what is visible on the shape, the Rigger 1A being a prime example. This is because it was a foldover shape and the measurements within the program are of the entire shaper tip. Below the length field is the gouge diameter selection. This refers to the gouge diameter embedded in the shaper. If selecting a preset, the gouge from the original shape will fill this field. If creating a custom shape, however, then selecting the diameter of the gouge blade that you use is a good starting point. That way, the cane sits in the shaper comfortably without being forced to bend or straighten out. Luckily, there isn't an incorrect gouge selection, as the program will calculate the shaper measurements needed to give you the same result, regardless of whichever gouge diameter is selected. For example, changing the gouge diameter from 32 mm to 26 mm recalculates the shaper measurements. A smaller gouge diameter means the cane wraps around the shaper more. This requires an overall narrower shape. If in doubt, look through the presets for shapes you're familiar with and see which gouge diameter they use. On the off chance that a shape is too wide to be geometrically possible on a certain gouge, a warning will appear letting you know, and it will tell you to either change the shape point values or the gouge itself. Next is the bolt hole diameter, where you can select either metric or imperial bolts to use to secure the two shaper halves. I recommend using one of the hex bolt options. When selected, the program creates a hexagonal indent on the bottom of the printed shaper. This allows the hex bolt head to lock into place. Rounded bolt heads require glue or alternative fastening since they can't grip onto the printed surface. The default is an M5 hex bolt, and I recommend one of at least 40 mm in length. Below that are several toggle options. Generate guide indents adds small notches marking the tip, narrowest point, and butt for easy cane alignment. Generate alignment post enables the gray alignment post, which helps center the cane. Make sure to keep this on for easier shaping. If the butt value drops below 6 mm, as it would on an oboe shaper, the alignment post will change to an isosceles triangle to maintain correct cane positioning while also maintaining structural stability. And finally, we have Engrave Shaper Name, which adds the shaper name to the bottom of the printed model. You can also edit the name so your printed shaper is labeled exactly how you want it. Now, we move on to shape points. This is the core of the shaper's geometry. At the top, you'll see the folded tip width. Below are 3 columns: distance, shaper width, and flat width. The distance refers to the distance from the tip, and the shaper and flat widths are corresponding widths at those distances. The shaper width is the actual width of the printed shaper, and the flat width is the width of the cane if you flattened it out completely after shaping. The flat width values are central to the functioning of the program, as this is how the program calculates what the shaper widths would be for different gouges. Points can be entered as either shaper widths or flat widths, as bidirectional calculations will update either column accordingly. You can add or remove points using the buttons below. Selecting a field and clicking Add Point will add a row after the selected field. If you click Remove Point, the row which currently contains your cursor will be removed. Below that, we have the curve options, which determine how the program draws the shape between points. Smooth Curve uses a cubic spline to create a flowing, continuous curve. Straight Line simply connects each point linearly. When many points are used, the difference between the two becomes smaller as the curve is being constrained by all the additional points. You'll see only minor changes in the narrowest point. With fewer points, the distinction becomes more dramatic, especially in the throat and collar areas. Experimenting with both modes can yield interesting results depending on your design philosophy. A helpful tip is to start sketching a custom shape using the straight line setting to get the general outline. Once you're happy with it, switch to the smooth curve and then you can work on more intermediate points. In advanced features, you'll find the Offset Shape Start slider. Adjusting the slider introduces a new purple line in the preview, indicating the offset tip area. Some shapers include a short flat section near the tip to ensure that when you clip the folded blank, the tip width remains accurate to the shape. For example, if you typically clip 3 mm from the tip, setting an offset of 3 mm ensures that you maintain the intended folded tip width. The slider also accepts negative offsets, which will push the shape forward. Additionally, the offset slider also helps maintain consistency between foldover and straight shapers. Anyone who has used a foldover shaper knows that the cane sticks slightly up above the tip. For bassoon and contrabassoon, this is generally around 0.5 mm to 0.8 mm. Adding a 0.5 mm offset will allow the straight shaper to create the exact same shape as a foldover shaper would. Below the slider is a tick box called Enable Asymmetrical Shape. This is one of the more intricate features added in this version of CurvaSURE. Enabling asymmetry allows the left and right sides of the shape to be independent. When you first tick that box, 4 things will happen. The Display Half-Width Values box becomes available. A midpoint line appears down the middle of the shape. The left and right profile tabs become active, and 2 more buttons appear in the shape points area entitled Load Preset as Side and Mirror to Opposite Side. If you select Load Preset as Side, the button becomes toggled, with the text changing to Cancel Load as Side. In this state, you can go into the preset menu, select any preset, and whichever profile you are on, those points will then populate that side. If you click this by mistake, simply cancel Load as Side to turn off that feature. The second option, Mirror to Opposite Side, will mirror the points from whichever tab you're on to the other one. If you disengage the asymmetry, the program will use the left profile as the points for the symmetrical shape. Display Half-Width Values makes the shape points fields display as their half-widths from the midpoint line. This is a very helpful way to enter asymmetrical shapes and to also view how one side compares to the other. Next, we move on to preview controls. These parameters affect the preview area on the right exclusively and don't affect the file generation. The first box we have is Display Preview using flat width and is fairly self-explanatory. When this box is ticked, the preview will show what the read would look like if it were completely flattened out. This can help better conceptualize the end result of the shaper. Show Guide Marks is ticked by default and is responsible for displaying the tip, narrowest points, and butt lines. Ticking Show Point Marks will display black dots along the outline where measurement points have been added. This is especially helpful in manipulating the curve of shapes. Show Midpoint Line is unticked by default, but will automatically be enabled when asymmetry is selected. Auto Update is selected by default, which allows the program to update the preview area whenever a change is made. If for some reason you want to manually trigger an update instead, untick this box and click Generate Preview, which will cause all the changes you've made to the shape to be displayed. On the right side, you have Show Clipped Tip. When this is ticked, a dotted line shows up on the shape at the distance you input into the field. Similarly, if you select Show Collar, a line appears at the distance you input. Next to both of those lines on the preview are annotation boxes with distance from the tip and both shaper and flat widths. If both the clip tip and collar are enabled at the same time, the total flattened blade area between those 2 points are displayed. This can be helpful for modifying different shapes to work for you by aiming for a similar blade area. It is also just interesting to have an insight into how widely different some shapes can be from one another. Finally, you have Show Curvature Comb. When this is ticked, a purple comb appears alongside the side of the shape, which you can change the scale and density of. This simply shows how smooth your shaper curves are. If there are many jagged points, it means the spline curve produced by the Smooth Curve option isn't as smooth as it could be, so you might want to adjust some of your measurement points. The teeth of the comb that face to the right of the shaper outline means that the curve is going outward in that direction, and the teeth facing on the left of the shape show the curve is going inward in that direction. If no teeth are shown, it means that section is a perfectly straight line. If Straight Lines is selected as the curve option, the curvature comb is disabled. The last section is the Generate Files dialog. There are 2 options for generated files: the STL, which is used for 3D printing, and the DXF, which is used for CNC machining. DXF files are what is needed by shaper manufacturers to machine metal versions for you. The Help button opens the manual in your browser, which includes everything covered here plus additional mathematical explanations. The shaper measurement converter is now a legacy feature, as it's no longer needed in version 3 of CurvaSURE now that the flat width column bidirectional calculation exists. It has been left as an optional tool. For more information about it, please consult the manual. Now, let's create a custom shape. Open the preset menu and select a default template. The blank template is completely empty, but the instrument-specific default templates already have values selected for both length and gouge diameter. This is because, at the time of filming this, Reeds and Stuff have very kindly offered to machine metal versions of custom shapers made in CurvaSURE at the cost of their standard price shapers. These parameter values reflect what Reeds and Stuff expect to receive when you send them a DXF file. If you are sending a shaper that hasn't been made with the default template, please check that you change the values to match the default settings prior to sending. Now, with the default preset chosen, you can choose to name your shaper, such as Michael Custom Shaper. Then enter your points, perhaps a 15mm tip, a 9mm butt, and a 40mm measurement around 8mm in width. The shape appears on the right once you enter these values. Switching between smooth and straight line modes shows how the outline changes. With fewer points like this, straight line produces sharper, more angular transitions, while smooth mode narrows and curves the profile. When you're ready, click Generate Files to export. An important reminder that custom presets are not stored within the program and must be exported separately. Use Save Custom Preset to save your preset locally, and Open Custom Preset to reopen them later. I hope this walkthrough was helpful. There's far more detail in the manual, but this provides a solid overview of CurvaSURE's functionality. The goal is to allow players and reed makers alike to experiment with established shapers, create their own designs, and share their discoveries with one another, pushing the boundaries of reed design into the future. I encourage you to explore, experiment, and collaborate with one another. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me through social media or my website. Thanks for watching, and have fun!